Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, for listening to me. I appreciate that all of you kept your seats, and we're back. So with that, I'd like to introduce a very special guest. Brittany Kelm is currently serving at the National Energy Dominance Council. Prior to serving on the council, she was at the Department of the Interior and the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Land and Minerals Management. So with that, I'd like to welcome Brittany Kelm.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am glad to be here and give an introduction to the National Energy Dominance Council. I see some familiar faces in this room, and so some people in here know what we're doing on a daily basis, and I can just now give the spiel to everyone else to open us up as the resource. But so for those of you who don't know, or a refresher, we were established by executive order by President Trump February 14th, and we were created to be this utility player that sits in the White House to get energy projects done and to get shovels in the ground on projects that had been stalled due to previous red tape in the government. So we were positioned there to not only find those and get the projects off the ground, but then work out what do you need policy-wise there. So could that be permitting reform, or is it just this permit has been stuck at the Army Corps, or X, Y, and Z? So we were created there to be SMEs, and you can see that in how the NEDC is established. So I come from an oil and gas heavy background, but I worked for Shell, Valero, Noble Energy, now Chevron. So you see that with the rest of us on the council as well. You have SMEs from nuclear, tied to the grid, utility player background, electricity, and then also coal. And I mentioned on the nuclear side, that has been a priority of the president, and to make sure we have framework to get that established, which you saw with 4 executive orders. So you think of us not as a think tank policy white paper group, but as someone who you can come and meet with us, and then we can run to the ground anything you need for your company's specific projects. And so that being said, I, in the oil and gas side, work very, very closely with FERC and all of my regulators at DOE, EPA, DOD, specifically on the Army Corps side. I work very closely with them getting permits across the line. And then as everyone here knows, Secretary Burgum was placed as the chairman of the council, and so I am over at DOI very regularly because we love working with our federal lands and all the bureaus there. So think traditional offshore, onshore oil and gas production. But so you can literally come to us at the White House. We sit at the Eisenhower Executive Office building, and then we can pinpoint directionally where you need to go, specifically if maybe you don't have that contact at USTR. We're really well staffed now with great politicals. So every day, me and my colleagues, we sit there and we are meeting with stakeholders like you all because we want to be able to get these projects off the ground and get these wins for you all. And so if you haven't come in and met with us, we would love for you to come and do that. We are really, really focused right now on baseload power and anything we need to be able to get data centers and grid connectivity done and built in this administration. I have to note, just because the trip last week, we also play very heavily in the international side, which most energy companies know you are probably going to be exporting your energy. And so that's how I like to describe our directive on energy dominance. We've achieved energy independence here in the United States, and so now to be energy dominant, we need to be able to export that to our allies. So last week, I was actually very privileged to lead Secretary Burgum as chairman of the NEDC, and then also in that, he holds position and role on the NSC. So I work just as closely with my NSC counterparts, and then the State Department interties there. So we are now officially international travelers and on the world stage there, selling and exporting our products. So you can also leverage us in that capacity, which probably is not something people traditionally thought to come to us for if you were only thinking of onshore domestic issues. Just to tie in on there on the international side, so we're really, really involved on energy trade. So I offer that up too if y'all have any needs there for upcoming trade negotiations where we can be helpful and where we need to be perhaps onshoring something more in the U.S. or we need more connectivity with another country. I will, because I think this will probably be relevant and of interest to everyone in here, bring up permitting reform. We are very, very engaged on that. And so we work very closely then with the White House legislative team. And so whatever we need then for the directives of establishing and growing baseload power domestically, we support legislative fixes. We were very, very active in One Big Beautiful Bill. And so that, I mean, obviously you saw where we fought for the nuclear tax credit and we didn't get everything through. We would have loved expedited permitting, but we got rather far there. But so you can leverage us then in that capacity too to get these onshore domestic projects for baseload power. I need this in Congress, I need this bill. So some things we're looking at right now on that, obviously looking to see what we need for being able to get more permitting for transmission to those reliable energy sources for baseload power and the grid connectivity, obviously pipelines, SMRs, anything on the nuclear side as well. And so there are some pieces we really like looking at SPEED Act, for example, like what is good there with judicial review reform. We need that's going to help across the board. We need statutory limitations. And then my favorite is permit by rule. So some things we're looking at too there as you have the congressional side, but on the federal piece administratively what we can do. So looking at DOI just to see if it's federal lands, what can we establish and implement on a permit by rule basis. And you've seen some actions too out of FERC that implement some permit by rule language that you kind of get the same thing there. But so think of us that way too. As I said, we were a project-focused policy council. We do the policy side as well. I have the pipeline portfolio, and so, of course, that this week, a little biased towards looking at the T&I hearing for pipeline safety reauthorization, but then looking to see what we can do to leverage any piece of legislation we have moving to get some of these permitting priorities in. Those are the big ones we're looking at right now, because as you can imagine, I spend quite a bit of time walking around all the different agencies to get the permit. So I am probably now, if I wasn't already before, your biggest advocate on permitting reform in the White House. I don't know, can I open up questions or? Okay, so that being said, if y'all have projects that are specific to pipelines, grid connectivity, and me mentioning that with all the SMEs we have available in our office, please reach out and we'd be happy to connect you. Or if perhaps you need someone like on the Domestic Policy Council and you just don't know, we like to work that as well. But yeah, I'm open to questions if you want to do.
Hi, Cooper Pride from TD Cowen. You mentioned that you're doing work negotiating abroad for energy exports. Do you have anything to share on potential offtake for the Alaska LNG project?
Ooh, I love this one. Yes. So it just, for instance, this one makes sense for us to be prioritizing because it doesn't quite logistically make sense if we have so much resource in Alaska, and Trump is very, very, very big on letting us work diligently to export and, well, first off, being able to get rid of the regulatory burdens to get the production there. You saw that with lifting the NPRA rule. But then on the LNG side, ensuring that we can get that pipeline built, and then it just makes sense if we are going to be exporting LNG to Asia to be getting it from Alaska versus like you can get that there in 8 days versus going from the Gulf of America. So that, just setting that stage, that's why we want to do that and why it makes sense. And we have gotten a lot of interest from Asian countries who they're chomping at the bit to be able to get that, which you've seen us get some LOIs already. So right now we're truly just waiting on Glenfarne's going to be doing their feasibility study, and then once that's out, you'll see more binding agreements. But you saw last week JERA sign one agreement for some offtake, so you're already seeing it come, and it's almost like the Asian countries being like, can we get it now? What is it ready yet? So that's an exciting one that we'll be able to get done in this term.
Hi, my name is Trisha Crimmins. I'm a clean energy reporter from an outlet called Morning Brew. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the permitting kind of expansion for solar and wind on federal lands, especially with the Department of the Interior. We've heard a lot over the last couple of days about how there is a lot more review from the Department of Interior for those permits, and you're talking about permitting reform. Just wondering how you guys square that and kind of what the reasoning was for that change.
It's down to prioritizing baseload power, directive of President Trump, which I'm very, very glad we wake up every day with no question of what our priority objectives are, and so that in prioritizing baseload power, and that has just been a focus of permitting for those specific energies, which are oil and gas, obviously inclusive of pipeline, the nuclear side, and the permitting for such on federal land. So it's pretty clear, like that's where any policy then is going to fall in prioritizing that for baseload.